very warm welcome to our audience. We are glad to introduce you to Jessica Merrill, who is a senior professional in human resources. She's also the editor and chief blogger with bloggingforjobs.com. Jessica Miller-Merrell specialization, she is an author, speaker, HR professional, and workplace social media expert. She has a passion for recruiting, training, and all things social media. She's the president CEO of Exceptional HR and a leader in the HR community with more than 12 years of industry experience. She was also listed in the Forbes Top 50 Social Media Power Influencers of 2013. We are glad to have you here, Jessica.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here. Excited to talk. We're halfway across the world from each other.
Great. So shall we start with the questions?
Yeah, let's get started.
Jessica, HR should crash the boardroom. Are the HR undermining the potentials or are they looked down upon? How can HR align their roles closer to the bigger roles akin to that of a CEO?
I think that sometimes HR is undermining their potential. They're maybe focused on parts of the business, not necessarily that aren't aligned with the CEO, but there's sort of this miscommunication happening. So they aren't speaking the same language. I'm suggesting that they crash the boardroom because I'd like for them to educate and quit asking for permission. Just get out there and do it. And that means inviting yourself to meetings, building a relationship maybe with somebody on the senior leadership team, and having an alliance so that when you go into the boardroom, you're not all by yourself, you against the world. I think that HR needs to speak the language of the senior business leaders, and that starts with understanding the P&L, any type of financial statements, being able to speak to those, and really thinking about how those things align with the bigger picture and maybe the interests of your senior business or your C-suite leaders.
Yes, quite true. HR, they really need to understand a little bit of financial so that they can crack the boardroom and impress the rest of them and put their step forward that yes, this is what they're supposed to do. Great. Jessica, now next question is, you are an expert in HR technology. What newness can HR technology bring to an organization? Would you like to throw some light upon some of the latest technologies that you have been using?
So the HR technology industry in itself is just exploding, and it's a really exciting time, I think, to be in our space because technology can really help elevate and bring light to what we're doing as practitioners. There's conference board data from 2014 is saying from our CEOs that talent is the most important part of what they're thinking about right now. It's their complete focus, and that is totally in our arena. So this is where I think we can kind of align together and maybe this using some of the same language. Technology, particularly the big data and the analytics piece, really helps provide ROI and kind of just information and knowledge around exactly how human resources benefits the organization. For such a long time, we've been thought of as a cost center. So it's just a place where we have to spend this money, and it doesn't necessarily generate us any revenue. From time to time, it might save us a couple $100,000 because of a lawsuit. We have compliance purposes, or maybe HR is responsible for safety purposes. But there isn't anything that says, oh, HR brings in this many dollars and they provide this much benefit to the business, because there really hasn't been a way to track that. And now with HR technology, we can pull data and information from all parts of the business and be able to really make a case for how important that I think that most of us know that we are, having been in the industry for a little while. Now we can make a case and say, look, if we are looking at maybe different pieces, so maybe forecasting with an organization for staffing, and then looking at some succession planning information, or maybe it's something like an organization is moving and building a new facility, and they're going to be adding 500 workers. Using different technologies, I can go in and kind of forecast that, look at our talent pool, and then be able to kind of have a strategy and a plan to be able to find the right people to do the things that are going to be able to generate revenue for our organization. And that's where we move from this cost center to a revenue center within the organization. Some exciting things that are happening in human resources technology are with mobile. That's probably one of my favorite places to play in the space. There's some cool tech out in the UK. It's a company called TempBuddy, and I've had a couple conversations with them and saw a demo, and they're more for the contract workforce. But anyway, you can be able to request workers using the mobile device. People can apply for those positions, and then they can check in wherever they are. So maybe you're a temp agency, and I'm an HR person, and I need 15 production people to come into my offices on Friday to do some work on the assembly line. These people use their mobile device to check in. There's a facial recognition component, and then there's this whole GPS tracking component. So people are who they say they are. They show up to the work site, they do their job, they leave, and then as the HR person, I pay the temp agency, and then that contract worker gets paid. There's a lot of really cool things. Mobile is probably my favorite space to play in right now. It's always changing, and the more that consumers and our candidates, our employees are relying on their mobile devices as part of their non-workday activities, the more important that particular area is going to be.
It's rightly mentioned, Jessica, that we have to spend some money on technology so that from cost center it moves on to revenue center over a period of time. And we would definitely check out some of the apps in the mobile areas that you're suggesting us. So moving on to the next question. Talking of recruiting trends, how should the HR gear up to attract and retain best of the talents?
We need to be looking internal and external. So I'm going to talk about internal first, because I think that's an area of opportunity that often most business leaders, they're thinking about. Talent's their #1 priority, but they really aren't exactly sure how to go about that. And it's more than just developing a high potential program for the business. They really need to have a personalized process or program to be able to engage the entire employee community. So asking them what their interests are, what their career plan is, seeing if they're engaged. And one of my favorite interesting HR tech pieces right now around this is machine learning. Saba Software has a really interesting product called TIM, and TIM is a machine learning piece that's built within their HR technology suite and learning platform. So basically, you're an employee, you go online, and you're in the platform, you're searching, you're looking for information, you're attending trainings, looking at content, getting information to be able to do your job or your future job better. And so Tim is smart, and he uses machine learning and past preferences and interests within the technology and the classes that maybe your learning development team or content that you've uploaded to make suggestions for you, so that employees are able to be learning and growing and developing based on their preferences and their interests, and with the idea that it's going to further the organization. So you don't have to take you can take a personalized approach without being super hands-on and having to have a bazillion one-on-one meetings with your team. Let me go to the external side, because I think that's also an interesting area. It's super competitive in the market right now. The economy is better. Suddenly it's a candidates market, depending upon where you are, but throughout most of the world right now, candidates are in the driver's seat of where they work and what they do. So it's really important for companies to try to think long-term, and I think that the future of being proactive in your recruiting strategy, at least externally, is through building talent communities. So using technology to start building those relationships with candidates 6 months, 1 year, 18 months, 24 months, whatever, before they even become a candidate. And you're learning their interests, they're getting to know you, you're building this pool of candidates, much like you would pay to be able to go access like a job board to Resume Mine or LinkedIn and these places. But you're building that, and that's your candidate pool. You're not renting someone else's space, and you can really customize that environment and those interactions completely to you. And imagine a world where we already have 2 million candidates in this talent community that we've developed, and suddenly we're opening up a new facility, and it's a 2,000 person or a 20,000 person facility. Well, very quickly, your recruiting team or your talent acquisition team can just go into your talent community and start the search before even formally posting that job opening out there, making that time to fill much shorter. The key is to be proactive. So there's not going to be a lot of ROI immediate from a talent community because they take time to build, like a lot of things in the space. But I think that that's the best way to gear up, is to look externally and internally. We can't just rely on new employees to do what I call fill the leaky bucket. We kind of have to hit it on both fronts. We need to take care of our employees and engage them and develop them and understand what they want, because they already understand the business. And then on the other side of the house, we need to start building those relationships with those future employees, potentially.
Yes, sir. Well said, Jessica. Like, the candidates have really taken the driver's seat. And to fill in the leaky bucket, it's not just the new employees that they're going to help. We have to keep the existing employee base engaged. Right, next, moving on to the next question. Job search and recruitment happens on social media. What are some of the important things to be kept in mind while using social media for job search?
I absolutely love social media, and it's been a great thing for my business and my career, and it's a great way for me to connect with my family and friends. I have friends all over the world, many of them who I've never met IRL or in real life, but that doesn't mean that my relationship isn't less real than an in-person relationship. I think that because social media is sometimes casual, it's hard for people not to shut off that oversharing button. You really need to have a strategy together and know that chances are, if you're a job seeker, that recruiters, hiring managers, and HR, and frankly anybody within the organization, they're likely going to be Googling you. So you need to be Googling yourself. I would remove your cookies, maybe your past preferences, or maybe go to the library and search your name and see what comes up in the search results. You really need to be conscious of, I would say, the first 1 to maybe 5 pages and see what kinds of things are there. Tweets, certain messages, different things are being indexed on search engines. They are going to not just be searching maybe a Google search or a search engine, but they're going to be looking on Twitter. That's probably the easiest one. They're going to be checking you out on maybe YouTube and LinkedIn, all these different places. So think about that. You want to put together a strategy, and I would say 6 to 12 months before you actually go out into the job search, you need to start building your profile and your portfolio and the content they're going to be sharing on social media, because recruiters and hiring managers are going out to look easily on Twitter. And I know of all the time, every day, there's a new story in the media or a friend of mine saying, I found this great candidate, they're a Drupal guy and somebody that I really need for this position, but I went to their Twitter feed and all they're doing is posting things about their boss, about how they hate their job, or saying really inappropriate things or using bad language. And these are the kind of things that are barriers. They're kind of red flags that are going to keep you from getting jobs. One of the other things that you can do when it comes to social media for the job search, and this is probably my favorite too, is that recruiters are super connected. So if you're looking at getting into an organization or you want to build a relationship with somebody, social media is a great place to do that, particularly Twitter. And I'm not suggesting that you try to connect with everybody. You find, if you're looking for a recruiter at Intel, you just search on Twitter, recruiter at Intel. Or if you go on LinkedIn and do that and see, a lot of times these recruiters will include their Twitter account on their LinkedIn account, and then you connect with them on Twitter first, tweet them, talk to them a little bit, and then ask to connect with them on LinkedIn. This is a great way to build a relationship, and if you do this 6 or 12 months in advance prior to you looking for a job, when you are ready, you might have 7 or 8 good relationships with recruiters at these key companies that you've identified, Intel, maybe HP, it depends on what industry you're in, frankly. You connect with them, and then when you're ready to look for something, you really just send them a tweet, maybe a private message or an email, and say, hey, I'd like to set up a discovery interview. I'm ready to take a look at some new opportunities. Can I talk to you about some openings at XYZ company? You're one of the top 5 on my list of places that I would like to maybe have a future career with. You would be surprised if you do the work up front and you take your time what your results will be. It's it's a lot easier than it sounds. You just have to have patience to be able to plan. The worst kind of job search is that desperate job search where maybe you've been laid off or let go, or suddenly the work has gotten so unbearable that you've said, oh, I can't have another day here. I can't be here any longer. And then you just go like gangbusters out on social media. The long-term relationships that you're building on Twitter and Facebook and these other places, in my mind, are more valuable than the short ones where you're just sending a tweet saying, hey, I really want to work at XYZ. Can we schedule a call? They don't know you. They haven't had a chance to understand why you're interesting, why you want to be important or beneficial for the organization, and they're just going to send you to the career Twitter account or send you and ask you to apply online. There's no relationship there. They're not invested in anything. So think long term. Start building those relationships. The last thing that I will say about social media is blogging is where my heart has always been. It has changed my career trajectory. And I think that if you want to show that you have an area of expertise or an interest in something in a particular area of business, or certainly that you can communicate very well written or spoken, if you're on a Google Hangout or you have your own YouTube channel, you can use blogging, video blogging, and these tools to be able to demonstrate to a recruiter, to a hiring manager, that you are knowledgeable and qualified to do a job. Even if you don't necessarily have the most perfect resume, you might be very well spoken or had a great deal of experience in something that might be a non-traditional. So don't forget blogging. It's such a great way. I would say that if you're going to be blogging about business stuff, you shouldn't be blogging about maybe your cats or you know, your interest in gaming. These are all things that they might be considering in your employment, and maybe they have their own hang-ups about these different kinds of things. But really be focused on the content that you're blogging about, the topics that you're writing about, and even sharing on social media, because they're watching and listening and certainly looking at your online and social media activities.
A lot of advices and tactics that you have given to our audience and to our viewers. Yes, blogging, preparing 6 to 12 months in advance, tweeting, getting conscious of yourself on how you're appearing on the Google searches. A lot of advices that you've given us. Now moving on to the next question, what are some of the emerging roles in the HR domain that MBA students should watch out for?
So I would say that the global HR entity is changed a lot in the last 5 years. So just the interest in different professionals moving from different roles within different companies, getting that experience in different global areas. The world is so much smaller than it used to be, even though it's very large. It's not uncommon for you as an HR leader. Maybe you're a Asia Pac VP of HR for a large RPO firm or something, and so you have this particular area, and then they ask you, you know, would you be willing to take over the UK or South America or the US? These are things that maybe when we're getting our MBA, we aren't necessarily thinking about, but it's definitely something that you should be considering. So looking at the global aspect and how that might play into the future of HR and certainly in the world of talent, whether it's hiring or succession or strategy, is really important. In the U.S., there's a really new area that I'm starting to see, and if you're a data scientist or you have an interest in this or an engineer, there are a lot of companies who are actually bringing on, in the Silicon Valley area, anyway, I'm seeing a lot of companies who are bringing in data scientists to work with the HR team to interpret all the data that they're pulling from all these places, whether it's their applicant tracking system, maybe it's their HRIS system, maybe it's their procurement system, wherever it is, they're pulling all this information, this data, maybe they have an internal social network, they're culling that information that your employees are sharing there, and they're helping use that information to maybe have a better forecasting, maybe it's staffing or retention or understanding the pulse of the organization. Are employees engaged? Are they disengaged? What topics are important to them? That's another area that I'm seeing a lot of growth in. I find it very interesting, having spent some time with a number of data scientists, just kind of trying to get a feel for how they think, how they act, and what they do. And working in a environment like human resources that Although it's really data focused, it's not necessarily scientific. A lot of times we are very basic in our formulas and the metrics that we use. It could be just turnover or cost of hire, those sort of things. We aren't really looking at the larger picture where we have millions of pieces of information coming at us and trying to interpret those. I guess the last emerging role in the HR domain I think is more of the people manager, so not necessarily human resources and recruiting or HR and administrative roles, but the role of seeing the human resources role not just as HR anymore, but people. So you might be the VP of people in the future, and I think that lends a lot better for this intertwining between human resources and recruiting. A lot of people want to have these entities separate. There's a movement, there's a recent Harvard Business Review article that is making a move towards separating human resources into two areas, and that's strategy and administrative. And I don't necessarily know if that's the best use of the talents in HR. We don't have a separate accounting department. You know, we don't have a strategy accounting and a administrative accounting. It's all under the controller or the CFO. So these are things that we're going to be thinking about in the future going forward, and you guys will be helping to shape that. But definitely the intertwining or seeing talent as an entire entity, and I think that's going to be with a chief people officer type of role instead of just calling it human resources. We're evolving past human resources and human capital, and it's really bringing those pieces all together for the organization. And finally, we're getting, we're crashing the boardroom, and we're getting some street cred here. We're really being seen as a strategic partner, and that's exciting.
Yeah, those are quite a few. There's a lot of emerging rules that now MBA should watch out for. Very interesting spaces that you have introduced us to, especially the ones working with the data scientists. I'm so excited about it. Great. Now, bridging the gap among various departments, it has always been an organizational challenge. What is your take on it? How can HR assist in these roles?
So I'm not for sure if your MBA students are going to be just going into human resources. In fact, I would encourage you not to go into human resources right away. There's so much more value in your MBA and all the different pieces that you have by looking at different parts of the business. Now, most of my career was in human resources. I fell into the role. It wasn't a role that I wanted. It was a role that karma just kind of sent my way, and I took the opportunity and decided it was in a department or a area that I really loved. But spend time in other areas. Look at logistics, look at operations. If you're in the retail, get out there, get in merchandising, understand all these different pieces, because the future success in human resources is somebody who really takes a holistic but business-focused point of view. And when you look at the history of maybe human resources or personnel in general, it was an administrative role that kind of worked up the ranks. So somebody, maybe an administrative assistant, was promoted to an HR role where they were responsible for employee files, and suddenly they did the hiring, and then maybe they took on talent or HRIS system. So the type of folks who have grown up in the industry or in the space since its inception, they aren't necessarily strategy-focused people. They come from a really administrative side of the house, which there's nothing wrong with that. I've spent my time working in admin, but where I really got a lot of value in what is the best way to get that credibility with your business partners and your senior leadership is to spend time in other areas, because you speak the language, you build those relationships, credibility is earned, and then when you are talking about a new succession plan or a strategy or some sort of new initiative that you want to bring forth for the organization that is human capital focused, you understand how to communicate with those different business entities and your senior leadership team that is very different than the administrative file clerk that moved up the ranks, because they haven't spent time in other departments and behind the desk. They certainly probably haven't looked at a P&L, at least until they were probably maybe a director level or above. So get out behind the desk, ask questions, learn as much as you can, get a holistic picture of the business. That's what's going to take you really far in this new human resources world, whether you're in HR or not. Understanding the business, and then if you're not in HR, as you go about on your future career, working with HR and help them understand your side of the business so that you guys can grow together.
Yes, great. Yes, Jessica, getting a holistic picture is very important. Just instead of just jumping into one of the profiles and taking it ahead, understanding the business is very important. Very well said. Now, our last question to you is, what would be your message for the new HR executives and MBA Club India members?
So this is a fun one. And, you know, I remember when I was that 24-year-old MBA student just kind of getting started, and here I am, you know, 14 years into my HR career, and man, I never thought I'd get there, but here I am. And I would say that what is really hard when you're just starting out in any type of role, and it doesn't matter if you're young or old or new, it's patience and having a plan and really focusing on that. So whatever your end goal is for your career, having a plan in place and being patient and deliberate with your strategy. I would say do lots of research, ask lots of questions, and sometimes you have to take some chances to be able to get ahead or get noticed. One of the challenges that I had in my career is that I'm a woman, and even though HR is a field dominated by women, it's 80% female, most senior leaders are not women, and so sometimes it was hard to get that credibility. So sometimes you have to be a little aggressive. You have to ask for forgiveness, not permission, and get out there and drive a change. One of the best things that I ever did for my career, besides the blogging and the social media, was to do what I call pilot programs. So find something that you strongly believe. And for me, one of the coolest things that I did, and this is 2001, so Monster.com was just around, but I didn't have a budget for recruiting, and so I did not ask permission, but I thought, wow, where can I find candidates? And so I decided to use dating websites to search and source from to find people. And I started using that strategy, and I did it for 60 days. And I made 3 hires within those 60 days. And then after I had the business case for what I had done, I went to my boss and said, look, this is what I'm doing. Here are the results for it. I just want you to know that this is part of my recruitment strategy. And it cost me $0 because at the time, a lot of these dating sites were free. And I was just searching for them, getting their contact information, and simply sending them a message. And so I've really used that throughout my career, is to come with a pilot program. Doesn't always mean that you're going to be covert about it, but come armed with knowledge and information. So you maybe have talked to peers or other people in different entities who've had similar success or have learned from their mistakes, and have a plan ready, and then you have to make a decision. Are you going to present it to your organization, or are you going to go rogue and maybe test it out for 60 days and then present it to the board? There's risk associated with that, certainly, and I have not always been everybody's favorite for that reason, but if you really are passionate about driving change within an organization, sometimes the business is really slow, and the best way to make a change is to kind of buck the system a little bit and go rogue. So don't just get stuck on procedure and policy. Like, get out there, get uncomfortable, connect with people who are not like you. That is the key to keeping fresh and on your toes, and really taking, you know, your career and the businesses that you're working in and representing to the next level.
Jessica, those are some of the superb advices that you have given our members. And yes, patience, and it takes a little while. And wow, 80% of women are in HR. That is a figure I was not aware of. I'm sure most of our audience is also not aware of. And yes, as women, we need to get aggressive. We have to make our way for ourselves. Great. Thank you, Jessica, for your time. We are honored. I thank you from the entire team of MBA Club India for giving us your time and your valuable advice.
Oh, absolutely. Tweet me if you have any questions, or shoot me an email. Happy to help in any way.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye, guys.